Nigeria's performance at the Paralympics. Yes, we do know that the Olympics just ended, but at the moment, Nigeria actually tops the African medals table. Yes, then Egypt ranks then, so they're not doing badly compared to the Olympians themselves. And so Dare Dairo joins us now. He's the Lagos State chapter of the He is from the Lagos State chapter of the Joint Persons with Disabilities. Thank you for coming this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's interesting that performance there. By the way, because I mean, we do know that lots of people might just gloss over this. We don't know if the authorities in sport also do. But give us a background in terms of preparations. What do they go through? I mean, a lot of people know that regular Olympians, it's always a far cry from the real thing. What about this case? How come they're getting this medal? Does it mean they get more attention and preparations?
Well, for whatever you preparation-wise, for whatever let me use the word regular Olympics get, it's heaven compared to what the disabled athletes get.
Wow.
You know, so that should give you what the picture looks like. And it's not a fluke. Over the years, Nigerian disabled athletes have always do Nigeria proud at the Olympics and other international events where they are represented. You know, it's just a reflection of the situation of persons with disability in Nigeria. Now, it's interesting that sometime recently the president was at an international event and he made reference to Nigeria having domiciled the rights of persons with disability as a signatory to that UN Convention on the rights of persons with disability. Well, that's a very interesting comment.
Okay.
In light of the fact that today the Nigerian Constitution does not recognize the rights of persons with disability. Yes, there's one tiny clause somewhere, but it's never justiciable for anything.
And yet we're talking about a constitutional review and nobody seems to be focusing on that.
Nobody is still talking about that.
That's sad.
You know, and it's from the background of the fact that people, when you look at disability issue, it's usually in light of, okay, one board, government officials, governor's wife and all of that, cook up a pet project and maybe on Christmas or something, he buy clothes and distribute rice and what have you to some persons with disability, and it's celebrated in the media. That's their own idea of addressing the issue of disability. But it's in civilized climate. And I mean, I wonder, they all travel abroad, you know. In public buildings, to start with, there are places designated, parking spaces designated for persons with disability, and you dare not park in such places. So it's beyond the issue of charity. It's about human rights. It's about social justice. It's about economic development. Now, it will interest you that according to United Nations survey, averagely about 27% of every human population are persons with disability. Now, imagine that against the background of a Nigerian situation where the infrastructure is epileptic, and we don't even have adequate data of how many people the Okada sends to Bobby Ward every day, of how many people. We were talking about labor the other time. There is no, there's nothing concrete to protect the rights of persons with disability, persons who got disabled, so to say, in the course of duty. You understand? So these are the issues. You know, disability is not just, and you know, when you talk about it, people say, it's not by fortune in Jesus' name. And they get religious and emotional about it. I would have you know that presently Professor Chino Achebe is on wheelchair. And some time ago he was in Nigeria and he was frustrated.
Because truly, I think you've just touched it, and the example you just painted now, taking us to our own very Chino Achebe, a renowned professor known worldwide. But looking at it from the perspective of what we've seen so far, as Chimley rightly started off, we've seen what we have gotten at this Paralympic Games, not one, not two, not 3 medals, loads are already coming, like four golds. And we're also talking about rights of these people living with disabilities. And you talked about what we see in other climes. And truly, the first place you get to see any of such is even at the airports. Seats especially reserved for these citizens. But from the look of things, now you have an association trying to talk about rights of people living with disabilities. Have you been able to bring this before the government? Is anyone doing anything? We're trying to link this now to what they have just signed with the government, a performance contract. Let's see if truly there's a ministry or agency that should cater for such people in the society.
Well, interestingly, there is the first place to even start on the issue of persons with disability is to enact that bill, which has been before the president. It was almost at the signing. It was almost being signed by President Yaradua, late president, before he died, and it has been at the table of the president ever since then. And there's been a lot of back and forth, tossing, and all of that. So I think the first place to start is to pass that bill into law, and then by extension of passing that bill into law, part of the dictates of that law, there's a ministry, or call it whatever, but at least an agency should be set aside that will look specifically into the issues of persons with disability, because it's not presently you have it tucked somewhere in the Ministry of Youth and Sports, Social Development, and Women, and all of that. So by the time you look at all those things, youth, sports, big thing, sports. So by the time the budget and focus is on all of that, before they get to disability, it hardly gets any mention. And when you talk about disability, back to UN estimates again, people affected by chronic poverty, a greater percentage of them, more than 85% of them, are persons with disability. Because what do you expect? These are people who have no access to education, they have no access to legal and political representation. Even look at all public buildings you see around. How many of them can persons with disability access? People on wheelchair, for example. You understand? So these are the issues. So start with that law, enact that law, and let there be a ministry. Because when you talk about education, look at basic primary education, for example. When you talk about inclusive education, in the beginning it used to be at Sondaolu School for the physically challenged, partially home for the blind, and all of that. Those were then. The world had moved far away from that, because what you do, it was a good thing when it started.
Now you're talking about inclusion now.
Inclusion now, because when you do what that does is further separate persons with disability from the society. They are people apart. So now we are talking about inclusion. So inclusion doesn't mean you just jumble all persons with disability in one class in the normal school. There's a methodology, there's special demand, and all these things are not rocket science anyway. And I'm glad to say that it's not, that it's not so dark after all, because Lagos State government has enacted this bill, has passed this bill into law, what federal government could not do, and not only passed that bill into law in Lagos State, they have established that Office of Disability Affairs. And as I speak with you, I think last week or thereabouts, I was engaged as part of JONAPID, part of what the LASCOP and the civil society.
No, that's the acronym of your body?
No, JONAPID, Joint National Associations of Persons with Disability,
okay,
of which I'm the PR for Lagos State. Now, LASCOP is a Lagos State Civil Society Coalition platform. Now, this new public procurement law that was signed into a bill that was signed into law in Lagos State, there was a workshop for civil society organizations, and we were engaged at that. So Lagos State is beginning to engage persons with disability. Like Ministry of Health has consistently engaged us. In fact, sometime early this year, they made an announcement that they were going to employ sign language interpreters at all health facilities in Lagos State, which is a good start, because imagine somebody who is deaf and dumb, a pregnant woman with deaf and dumb,
before a doctor,
and the doctor cannot sign.